it's not because of this, but long before this, almost from the time I took office, it's gone so fast. Our country is hotter than it's ever been before. And we had a dead country a year and a half ago. We had a dead country. This country was dead with Biden and with that group of people.
Thing to talk about.
And if we had that group extended through Kamala, this country would have been dead. But we had a dead country.
She was the border czar.
Well, now look at the border. We have nobody coming in through the border anymore. Look at that. So, that's right. The border czar. She was our border czar. She would have been worse as a president than she was as a border czar.
Situation like this.
So, anyway, which is pretty bad. Have a good time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Mr. President.
Fleeing their countries.
Very much. Thank you, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
Talking about the Interior Minister, he was indicted also back in the first indictment, and he was not picked up by U.S. forces. So that left a very powerful figure who's indicted by the U.S. government, has been for years, still there in the Capitol and possibly one of the most powerful people in the country. So I'll be very interested to hear what President Trump and particularly Secretary of State Rubio have to say in terms of the transition ahead, because Cabello and other powerful people are still there and still in power.
And to be clear, Cabello posted a video from somewhere in Venezuela surrounded by sort of bodyguards, indicating that he's not just there, he's really there. Now, these things, as we know, can change on a dime, right? People can say they're in charge and then they're not. But this is what we're trying to get at. What happens next in Venezuela? Is the infrastructure, the people who control the infrastructure of state, are they endangered? Are they fearful? Are they prepared to make a deal? Are they prepared to leave? Or are they going to dig in?
That's the question, and that's, whether we face chaos or some sort of transition, we don't know. I thought the statement from Machado, the opposition leader, and the talk of a plan was hopeful, and her call for the groups that won the election last year to take power was positive. But will anyone listen to her? Again, we'll see what the president and the Secretary of State can explain, if anything, about what happens in the days and weeks ahead.
Let's see.
And you're looking at pictures from Mar-a-Lago. We're expecting a pretty big deal news conference. It'll be the president, it'll be the Secretary of State, the Defense Secretary, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and who knows who else will be joining to explain not just what happened this morning in Venezuela, which resulted in the arrest, the capturing of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, who will be arriving in New York in the next couple of hours, we believe, to face charges here, but also this military activity. David, I guess the question is, there are some competing narratives going on. One is Marco Rubio's, who has said, we're done, we got Maduro, and we're moving on. Pam Bondi saying we're going to charge him. But this seems to all be about Maduro and getting him out. But there are still 15,000 troops there. There's an aircraft carrier strike group there. There are F-35s positioned around Venezuela in Puerto Rico. What's your sense about what's next for the American military? It was a set of precision strikes this morning, but boy, we have a lot of firepower down there.
I don't think they're going anywhere. And to state the obvious, the person to listen to in this press conference is Donald Trump. He's acquired enormous, arguably unprecedented presidential power, thanks to some court rulings and also Republicans in Congress. And he said, again, very clearly in his Fox News interview earlier this morning that, we have to prevent Venezuela from going in the wrong direction. We don't know what that means. And he also said that the United States is definitely going to be involved in the oil industry in Venezuela. So the president could be aggressive on both of those fronts. He's also said that there was a plan for a second round of strikes. So that could happen also. This is a White House where the president makes a decision on his own. We saw that just days ago when he was tweeting at 3 a.m. From his bedroom in Florida. And so we'll just have to see what he says here.
Ambassador Story, you were very frank about the fact that Venezuela is a failed state. Yet Colombia has sent troops now to its border because I think far more than 1 million people had already crossed over in the last several years. They are worried about that. They are worried about the outflow of people from Venezuela because, as David Noriega points out, life is really bad for the average person in Venezuela.
No, it has been bad. It's been bad for a very long time. It's been bad since at least 2017 when the initial mass exodus of Venezuelans began. And I think it's really important for us to underscore that this dictatorship, by removing liberty and opportunity and allowing people to exercise their constitutional rights in Venezuela, has resulted in the largest mass migration in the history of the Western Hemisphere. 3 million people in Colombia, over 600,000 made it all the way to the United States. In some countries in the Caribbean, they represent 15, 20% of the population. That's destabilizing.
Yeah.
Regardless of who the people are, and most of them are decent people just trying to find a better life for themselves, it is destabilizing. Now, I don't necessarily believe that this initial action against Maduro will redound in additional departures. I think the military from Colombia is going to the border because of the FARC and ELN elements who have already been crisscrossing back and forth across the border because they're nervous about being having kinetic actions directed towards them inside of Venezuela. They feel more safe inside of Colombia. So actually, I take it as a good sign that the military is going to the border in Colombia. Now, if this is not stabilized, if we don't have a proper transition, then over time, I think you could see additional outflows of migration. On the other hand, if we do have a restoration of democracy and a stabilization of the situation in Venezuela, you can see people returning.
David Noriega, let me just ask you, I want you to put a little meat on those bones. All these other groups in Venezuela, this is not simply a matter of there's this authoritarian government and the people. There are all these intermediaries involved. There are, as you said, paramilitary groups, these motorcycle gangs, drug cartels. It can accurately, scientifically be described as a mess.
Let's see if we can get this back. I'm not quite sure I understand where that guy's coming from. He thinks that in this lifetime, Venezuela is going to be magically stabilized for these people who fled. It's stabilized so much that they're going to return. And the stabilization is going to come from the United States bombing and capturing their president and not having a plan for what comes next. And somehow Nicolas Maduro, his exit from Venezuelan politics is going to magically stabilize Venezuela in the region. I mean, sure, that's wishful thinking, bud, but let's live in reality here. We've seen this story before from the United States. We've seen regime changes from the United States in Central, Latin, and South America. Like, it doesn't just magically stabilize the region. So let's be careful when we're just kind of just going about this wishful thinking and kind of not realizing just how terrible of a decision this is.
The colectivos who are sort of paramilitary, extra-legal muscle for the regime. They do a lot of the regime's dirty work in terms of intimidating the civilian population and worse. In the Colombia-Venezuela borderlands, the main players are the ELN and the dissidents of the former FARC, which has officially been demobilized, but there are a number of sort of successor FARC organizations that are operating in that area. They are heavily involved in cocaine production and cocaine trafficking. These are ostensibly left-wing guerrilla groups, but sort of function as organized criminal groups. Speaking of organized criminal groups, there are gangs, organized criminal enterprises inside Venezuela that have differing levels of sort of embeddedness with the government and collusion with the government. We hear a lot about Tren de Aragua in the United States because of the way that the Trump administration has sort of weaponized Tren de Aragua and tried to, according to every single expert that I've spoken to, makes it out to be a far more organized and centrally controlled criminal enterprise than it actually is. It follows much more of sort of a franchise model with kind of isolated cells conducting low-level criminal activity with mostly other Venezuelans as their victims. Nevertheless, I think it is an example of the sorts of criminal enterprises, armed criminal enterprises that exist in Venezuela, and again, that have been operating in that country for many years now under a set of conditions that was controlled, managed by the regime, which is, kind of, I think, indisputably a kleptocratic, entrenched, corrupt regime, and has been for a very long time. Those are the kinds of armed groups, criminal groups, ideologically motivated in some instances, mostly financially motivated criminal groups that are going to, in one way or another, react to the situation. They're not all just going to lay down their arms and, start working with whoever the new government is. They have interests, material interests that they're going to protect. These are exactly the kinds of actors that could very well lead to really chaotic, violent situations that the United States might not be prepared to deal with, and that whatever successor government we see in Venezuela also might not be prepared to deal with.
So, Colonel Jack, I want to ask you about this because you had mentioned to me at the beginning of the show, you said America has a plan for every single country in the world. I may have to interrupt you if the president comes out. So we would hope, and we're going to be listening for this, that there is a plan for Venezuela, that all the stuff that Ambassador Story just told us and David Noriega told us, you would think the State Department, the Defense Department, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff know.
For some operations plans, that's absolutely correct. From start to finish, a guidebook on exactly how things are going to go from beginning to end, from instability to stability. But for others, less so. My guess is that there's less of that here because what takes place inside Venezuela has been extremely difficult to perceive, and how you're going to fix it, even more difficult to perceive. We have operations plans to do all manner of things, defending against a Russian invasion of Finland, making sure that the government stays in power in Vietnam. I mean, you can make anything you can make up and things that you can't even think of. We've got operations plans for, and they've all been, at least from an intellectual standpoint, they've been tested out. They've been approved by the chain of command. They're reviewed every year and approved by the Joint Chiefs of Staff and so on. This is one where it's not entirely clear that there is a plan to go from where we are today to the end. Most plans military plans do not call for the very first move being the removal of the head of state. It's usually something else. As a matter of fact, the removal of the head of state typically is as a concomitant of the overall plan, which includes, by the way, not just military action, but as we've discussed earlier, economic and political action as well, with all of them being integrated to achieve one stated objective.
And you dial up or down the diplomacy, the economic sanctions, the military action.
You use.
Yeah, I thought Trump was the deal maker. I thought he was able to negotiate with everyone.
The objective that's clearly stated as the end objective. It's not clear that that's the case here. And what happens next is liable to be anything from a complete change and reversion immediately to a democratic form of government, which everybody in the world, every democratic country would approve. That's one possibility. And the other possibility is utter chaos. The likelihood is something in the middle, but that's not desirable from anybody's standpoint.
Ambassador, I may have to interrupt you if they start talking, but I want to ask you about the fact that we're monitoring world reaction to this. As one would expect, the reaction has been very negative from Russia, from Cuba, from Iran. There's some sort of a nexus with all of these countries that's important for us to consider when dealing with military action against a country in our hemisphere.
Well, yeah, I mean, these are strategic competitors or strategic, competitors. Let's just leave it there. Who, frankly, Russia has enjoyed utilizing Venezuela as an economy of force mission to tie up the United States for quite some time. They use it as a platform to spread disinformation campaigns and undermine democracies across the hemisphere. This is really important for Cuba. Frankly, it's existential for Cuba. What's been interesting to me, it's been a rather muted response actually from Colombia and an expected response from Brazil. So I'm looking more at the regional players and how they're responding to this. Certainly the issue of sovereignty is one that's very important in Latin America. The United States does have a history of extraterritorial action in Latin America. So there's always going to be that question of sovereignty that comes up. But when it comes to the Irans and the North Koreas and the South Ossetias and the Russias of the world, of course, they're all sticking together on this. But for me, I think it's really important for us to assess where the region is, and because frankly, depending on how this breaks down, Colombia in particular is going to be extraordinarily important for maintaining stability and helping the reconstruction process inside of Venezuela.
So why do you think there's a muted response? Largely because this is their neighbor and they've got to deal with whatever the fallout is, so they're not looking to put another iron in the fire?
Well, it's certainly not it's not being done by President Petro not to draw Trump's ire. I mean, Petro has drawn the ire of President Trump repeatedly. He thinks it's going to redound positively on his opportunities for his chosen successor in the elections this year in Colombia. So that's nothing new. But I think there's also recognition that Colombia is directly affected by the instability inside of Venezuela, and also that the FARC and ELN elements that directly attack and undermine the Colombian democracy are currently headquartered across the frontier over in Venezuela. So their response here is going to be interesting to gauge. It's certainly going to be nonlinear. It'll change depending on how things kind of break down over time. What came out of President Lula in Brazil was exactly what I expected, which is this is an assault on sovereignty. We need to have this discussion more broadly. Let's take it to the OAS type of response. Of course, Russia is now trying to call a session of the United Nations to discuss this. So those are kinds of responses I think were expected. It's actually more muted from Colombia than I anticipated, but that doesn't mean it'll stay that way.
David, your take on that. You've talked a lot about this is going to be very important in the discussion. The Venezuelan diaspora, the people who have left and will stay elsewhere, the people who would like to go back. What role does that all play in what happens in the next hours and days?
Well, Ali, I mean, one extremely critical role in terms of the Venezuelan diaspora is the role of the Venezuelan opposition in exile, which I think we cannot overstate the extent of their influence on what we saw unfold today. You have people close to Maria Corina Machado, people who work immediately for her team, as well as people in the sort of secondary and tertiary orbits around her who have been lobbying the U.S. government primarily via Marco Rubio, but through some other players as well, lobbying the U.S. government very hard in recent months to escalate pressure against Venezuela. Maria Corina Machado, frankly, is someone who has been calling on the U.S. to intervene in Venezuela in one way or another for many years. Back when the Venezuelan opposition, political opposition, was more fragmented than it is today, Machado was seen as representing a sort of faction or tendency within the opposition that was in favor of using extra institutional measures, if you will, to depose Maduro, right? Whereas there were other factions of the opposition that were more committed to the idea of, if we're going to take power, we have to do it electorally, we have to do it in ways that are peaceful and legitimate. Machado was always much more in favor of the kind of thing that we saw happen today. Over the course of the last couple of years, the opposition has entirely coalesced around Machado, around this set of tactics. There are other players, but they've become essentially irrelevant. What the Venezuelan diaspora, those influential parts of the Venezuelan diaspora, not the regular, 8 million people who left, but the ones who have power and connections in Washington, D.C., in Miami, in Europe, what those people do and what they're doing in this moment is going to be hugely influential in the days, weeks, and months ahead.
David, what we are not going to see at this press conference, I believe, are voices from Congress. Democrats seem to be very upset about what's going on, but a number of Republicans are too. Not because I'm sorry, I meant David Rohde. Not because
that's because they have to get their heads around what happened, and Democrats don't just want to come out and just not know what they're talking about, right? But I will say, that guest was talking about how this is going to require the European Union and other democracies to come out and say, hey, you have to abide by international law, and going and just capturing a president of a nation, well, that's not a good thing for stabilization of the world. What I'll say is, let's look at this from like the Putin standpoint or the Xi Jinping standpoint, right? Like this gives them the green light for Xi Jinping to go into Taiwan and take their leaders, for Putin to go into the former Soviet peripheral states like Ukraine and try to take Zelensky. Because what's the democratic world going to do when they do that following this invasion and this bombing and this capturing. There's really no, argument from America to say, hey, well, that was wrong, because we're just letting it take place here, letting this administration do that. So this is, I completely agree with that guest that democratic nations need to speak out and speak out firmly, but this is a can of worms that is going to open us up to all sorts of problems in the years to come.
I'm going to do this a lot today. Not because I disagree with getting rid of Maduro. It's the idea that what should Congress's role be, or what should it have been in this decision to undertake this attack?
This all goes back to Watergate and the Vietnam War and abuses by the FBI and CIA throughout the Cold War. After Nixon's resignation, it was, the War Powers Act. It was an effort to not have one person, the president, have so much power. A sense that the, presidents, even to be fair, Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon and even John Kennedy drew the United States into Vietnam, which was a disaster. And so this is a norm that was established, but again, it was sort of frittered away by Congress. And this is maybe it depends on people's political persuasion, but if you believe in the division of powers in 3 co-equal branches, this is good energy coming from at least the Democrats in Congress. And there are privately some Republicans I've spoken to who are troubled by Trump and the way he's wielded power. They were troubled by the boat strikes. They are more hesitant to question him privately. So they'll be very interested, I think, in seeing how he handles the follow-up to this, what he sees happening next in Venezuela, and this whole broader issue. I mean, this, to me, the entire second Trump term is about how powerful should an American president be? And, those reforms that were enacted now 50 years ago have been sort of peeled away systematically. And we see it, the tremendous power that Donald Trump wields, military power, legal power, political power, all vested in one person. It's an extraordinary moment.
All right, we're watching Mar-a-Lago. That was a press conference that was supposed to start about 27 minutes ago, running a little bit late. As you can see, we are expecting the President of the United States, the Defense Secretary, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secretary of State, all at Mar-a-Lago to give us some detail about what happened this morning. What we do know is somewhere around 4 o'clock Eastern time this morning, there was a series of kinetic military actions in Caracas, 3 different sites, and that, according to the administration, Nicolas Maduro and his wife were captured in their bedroom. He was trying to hold them off, according to Donald Trump in a statement to Fox News this morning. They were captured. They were transported, we believe, to a ship, and they are on their way to New York, where they should be here in the next couple of hours. We're expecting some detail on that. At the moment, and I want to bring in Colonel Jack Jacobs about this. Colonel, just to put perspective here, there is not approval for a war in Venezuela. Most people don't really think there is going to be one or should be one. But we have 15,000 troops. 15,000 troops assembled. We have F-35 fighters nearby. We've got a aircraft carrier strike group. It's a war-ish footing. Now, you were in Vietnam, so I want to be clear. There were a lot more troops in Vietnam than there are people on the ground. We don't have any of that going on in Venezuela. But it's war-ish.
It certainly looks like it. And maybe that's part of the deal. The idea is to make it look warish. I mean, we've spoken this morning about the fact that cutting off Maduro from Venezuela is one thing, but there's a large infrastructure of cohorts and henchmen and so on still in Venezuela. I mean, you could make an argument, maybe Trump makes the argument, that this is, among other things, this assembly of large scale.
As a warning to those who want to stick around.
You want to stay around, the same thing is liable to happen to you. Right. We're going to send these guys in and so on. And so you need to run for the hills or give up or both.
Right.
And maybe that's what it's all about. But it's hard to envision how you're going to take what we have in the Caribbean at the moment and go from where we are today in Venezuela to the kind of democratic institutions that take a long time to put together with the kind of leadership that does not currently exist in Venezuela. The other thing to keep in mind is that the amalgam of forces that we have there is not really designed, the force structure, the troop list is not designed to do the kinds of things that need to take place in Venezuela, even if we were going to go ahead and put them ashore. I mean, you need lots and lots of special forces. I'm not talking about special operations forces. I'm talking about people that train the military and the paramilitary inside Venezuela to do the kinds of things they have not done before. Work under a chain of command with strict orders, discipline.
Yeah, okay. I mean, he's getting into the weeds here of like, you know, what we're going to need with an invasion. I'm more concerned about what's happening right now on the ground. We did hear that a helicopter was shot down. The Trump administration claimed that there were just injuries from that, but we have no idea whether or not U.S. soldiers were taken prisoner. We have no idea the extent to what happened with that helicopter, with these soldiers. I mean, can you just imagine a situation where our soldiers have been taken hostage and they are now demanding that Maduro is returned in exchange for our soldiers? What does the Trump administration do then? I mean, every minute that he has us waiting here, it makes me worried that, you know, all of this talk about how it was just a flawless military exercise, how, it was just so smooth. It makes me question that. And so, you know, it's now been over a half an hour after bombing Caracas, after taking their president, and he is nowhere to be seen. That just has me worried that maybe something is taking place behind the scenes that we don't know of, that there are problems that they're experiencing. I don't know, but this is, again, it's the Trump administration. It's sloppy, it's slapdash, it's all just kind of, you know, put together at the last second. So I guess we'll see.
None of that in Venezuela, but that takes.
Let's catch up live here and see
and you know,
what's going on. I'm not really enjoying these guests too much. Right. Let's see what CNN
in Venezuela
has for us.
Well, listen. At the end of the day,
let's see.
If you go into the president's national security strategy, you see something called the Trump corollary that basically asserts that the United States has the right to go in and clean up governments that are causing disruption or a threat within the region. So it'd be interesting to see which one of these the president leans on.
And also, you know, when we look at an image like this, and I think your perspective here of talking about Saddam Hussein, right, Noriega, you know, when you look at an image like this, right, this is the first image. This now is an image that is going to stand for something. And of course, we do anticipate seeing Maduro and his wife, his son, as they call him, the prince, you know, they're appearing in New York, right? We're going to see them in coming days, we expect, but we haven't seen him yet. So this is all there is for the world to look at. How does an image like this land with Xi Jinping, with Vladimir Putin, with, you know, in autocracies and dictatorships around the world that are looking at this moment as perhaps a crucial precedent for where we are headed? What is this image and what do they see in it, David?
Great question, Erin. I mean, on the one hand, it shows the ability of the United States to get through multiple layers of security and grab an authoritarian leader. So that's the downside for them. But I think the more they think about it, the more they may give thought to what the precedent enables them to do. I mean, if it turns out that the United States can get away with doing this, could President Putin attempt this with President Zelensky?
Exactly.
Who he has declared is
exactly.
Could China's leaders do this with the president of Taiwan, which China has declared is a breakaway province? So I think on the one hand, it shows the huge reach of the American military. On the other hand, it creates a precedent others could well abuse.
And there's also, of course, the deliberate, to show his disarray, his chaos, his lack of looking presidential or in charge, right? His sweatpants. It's a humiliating image, and obviously purposefully so. They're sending that message on purpose. David, in that context,
he didn't forget his sunglasses, though.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and perhaps there's a story.
No, man, he's blind.
Behind that, but almost the sweatpants
they put
half pulled
blinders
up.
on him. Those aren't sunglasses, man.
David,
Come on,
just
man.
looking
What
at the clock here, Eastern time right now, 11:37 in the morning. We had anticipated the president speaking at 11 a.m. Eastern at Mar-a-Lago, and obviously these things can shift on time, right? So that isn't abnormal in and of itself. But we are almost 40 minutes past the time. What do you think could be happening in that time? Obviously Wolf's group has been discussing, and Elena's been reporting on possibly new information coming in or who's going to be present. But what do you think this 40-minute delay could mean?
Well, first, we don't know, but we have some guesses. The president, in an earlier appearance on Fox, said that they would be revealing some details of the operation, but not all details. And they may well be debating which ones they're going to release and which ones they are not. Obviously, there's a propaganda element to that, as there is with the release of this photograph. Second, I think the president's got to figure out which of the explanations he leans on here. And thirdly, I think he's got to go figure out, what does he tell his MAGA base that was already worried that he was spending too much time on this?
Okay, here he is.
Here he is. He is walking out right now. The President of the United States, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth with him. Let's listen in.
We appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II.
My goodness, he looks terrible.
It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer. All perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, like never before. These highly trained warriors operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea, just sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in a ready, what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far. With capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have. And you see that even if you just look at the boats. You know, we've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it.
Okay, Donald, shut up, man, for a second. Let's translate what this guy is saying. We are going to control the oil. And then we're going to make sure we install a democratic or a America-friendly president who will give us cheap access to their oil. I mean, good luck selling that to your base, Donald. Good luck with that.
Until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to do a second wave if...
Yeah, because we all know how people like to be governed, right? You either do what we say or we'll kill you. Oh, yeah, Donald. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, this is all going to go real well. Oh, can't wait.
To do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not. the first wave, if you'd like to call it that. The first attack was so successful, we probably don't have to do a second, but we're prepared to do a second wave, a much bigger wave, actually. This was pinpoint, but we have a much bigger wave that probably won't have to do. This partnership
Keep repeating
of
yourself,
Venezuela
dementia.
with the United States
Dementia,
of
Don.
America, a country that everybody wants to be involved with because of what we were able to do and accomplish, will make the people of Venezuela rich, independent, and safe. And it will also make the many, many people from Venezuela that are living in the United States extremely happy. They suffered. They suffered. So much was taken from them. They're not going to suffer anymore. The illegitimate dictator Maduro was the kingpin of a vast criminal network responsible for trafficking colossal amounts of deadly and illicit drugs into the United States. As alleged in the indictment, he personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de las Solas, which flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for the deaths of countless Americans, the many, many Americans. Hundreds of thousands over the years of Americans died because of him. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil. Right now, they're on a ship they'll be heading to, ultimately, New York. And then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida. But we have people where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. And you all saw it. In addition to trafficking gigantic amounts of illegal drugs that inflicted untold suffering and human destruction all over the country, all over, in particular, the United States, Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty prison gang Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide. And he did indeed. They were in Colorado. They took over apartment complexes. They cut the fingers off people if they called police. They were brutal, but they're not so brutal now. And I just have to congratulate our military, Pete and everybody, and our National Guard, because the job that they've done, whether it's in Washington, D.C., where we have a totally safe city, where it was one of the most unsafe cities anywhere in the world, frankly.
Oh, he's going to start campaigning again.
In Washington, D.C. We haven't had a killing. We had the terrorist attack a few weeks ago. A little bit of a different kind of a threat. But we haven't had a killing in a long period of time, 6-7 months. We used to have two, on average, 2 a week in Washington, our capital. We don't have that anymore. The restaurants are opening. Everyone's happy. They're going, they're walking their daughters, they're walking their children, their wives. They walk to restaurants. Restaurants are opening all over Washington, D.C. So I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank our military. And I want to thank law enforcement. It's been amazing. And they should do it with more cities. We're doing it, as you know, and we're doing it in Memphis, Tennessee right now, and crime is down. We've just sort of started a few weeks ago, but crime is down now 77%. And the governor of Louisiana called, great person, and he wanted us to help him, as you know, in a certain very nice part of Louisiana.
My goodness, he looks terrible. I mean, the reason he's bringing up this National Guard troops is because
I understand
there were rulings that just came out that he can't go into Chicago, that he has to leave troops, leave the National Guard, take the National Guard out of California. I mean,
can't imagine why governors wouldn't want us to help. We also helped, as you know, in
You
Chicago,
can't imagine why
and crime
governors
went
don't
down
want
a
you to
little bit
help.
there. We did a very small help because we had no working ability with the governor. The governor was a disaster.
Oh my God! I mean, can you imagine being Pete Hegseth or Marco Rubio and like being up
when they need us,
probably for the last
you'll know
48 hours with
and
this
likewise, Los Angeles, where
invasion
we
taking
saved
place,
Los
and to have to
Angeles early
listen to this
with
guy just bloviate?
The
Oh,
police department made a statement that if the federal government didn't come in, we would have lost Los Angeles.
my
That's
God!
after,
What are
long
you
after the
talking
fires.
about, Donald?
That's when they had the riots in
Dude,
Los Angeles. We did a
get
great
back
job.
on
Got no
track,
credit for it
man.
whatsoever, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We don't need the credit. But we'll be pulling out when they need us. They'll call, or we'll go back if we have to. We'll go back. But we did a great job in various cities. But the place that we're very proud of is Washington, D.C., because it's our nation's capital. We took it from
Did he
being a
forget what
crime-ridden
he's
mess to
speaking
being,
about?
one of the safest cities in the country. But the gangs that they sent raped,
There you go.
tortured,
There you
and
go.
murdered
Bring it back,
American
Donald.
women and children.
My
They were in all of the cities I mentioned, Tren de Aragua, and they were sent by Maduro to terrorize our people, and now Maduro will never again be able to threaten an American citizen or anybody from Venezuela. There will no longer be threats. For years, I've highlighted the stories of those innocent Americans whose lives were so heartlessly robbed by this Venezuelan terrorist organization. Really one of the worst. One of the worst. They say the worst. Americans like 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary from Houston. Beautiful Jocelyn Nungary. What happened to her? They, as you know, they kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered by Tren de Aragua animals. They murdered Jocelyn and left her dead under the bridge. There was a bridge that will never be the same to so many people after seeing what happened. As I've said many times, the Maduro regime emptied out their prisons, sent their worst and most violent monsters into the United States to steal American lives. And they came from mental institutions and insane asylums. They came from prisons and jails. The reason I say both, they sound similar. Actually, prisons, a little bit more.
Okay. All right. I knew he was going to turn this into. I'm a little behind.
American
So let's.
assets and American platforms. Oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill. And the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and they stole it through force. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country. Considered the largest theft of property in the history of our country. Massive oil infrastructure was taken like we were babies, and we didn't do anything about it. I would have done something about it. America will never allow foreign powers to rob our people or drive us back into and out of our own hemisphere. That's what they did. Furthermore, under the now deposed dictator Maduro, Venezuela was increasingly hosting foreign adversaries in our region and acquiring menacing offensive weapons that could threaten U.S. interests and lives. And they used those weapons last night. Potentially in league with the cartels operating along our border. All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries. And not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines. And the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal. But we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Monroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen. So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting American power in a very powerful way in our home region. And our home region is very different than it was just a short while ago. The future will be, and we did this in my first term. We had great dominance in my first term, and we have far greater dominance right now. Everyone's coming back to us. The future will be determined by the ability to protect commerce and territory and resources that are core to national security. These are core to our national security. Just like tariffs are, they've made our country rich, and they've made our national security strong.
Okay, I will say this, the more he talks, the more you realize that this guy doesn't know what the hell happened with Venezuela. I've heard some analysts saying, "Oh, he calls all the shots. It's Trump's will." I really don't think so. I think it's like this weird Stephen Miller, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, like frat boy, just we're going to yield American power and might and show the world that we're nobody to mess with. And Donald's just like, nah, okay, boys, do what you want. That's why he doesn't really know what he's talking about. That's why he keeps veering off into like the National Guard and tariffs, and because he can't really talk about the military exercise that just took place. He can't stay on topic because he doesn't really know about it. He's just kind of like, yeah, okay, go do it. Oh, you're going to get Maduro? Okay, make it happen. Which is perfect for him because he talked about doing this 3 days ago on New Year's Eve, which just so happened to be the same night that the House Republicans on the Judiciary Committee released the testimony of Jack Smith, which, if you haven't seen it yet, is so damning for Donald Trump. Because Jack Smith clearly lays out the fact that if it would have went to trial, if the January 6th case or the classified documents case would have went to trial, Donald Trump would be sitting behind bars right now. For 8 hours, Jack Smith answered questions. And because we haven't heard much from Jack Smith, it was largely, there was a lot of uncertainty as to like, okay, well, what's the investigation? What's like, how legitimate is Jack Smith? I mean, we know he's legitimate. He worked at The Hague, but how is he going to respond to these Republicans who are going to try to pin him? And he just clearly laid out the case against Donald Trump in January 6th, the attempted overthrow of our democracy, and his stealing of classified documents. And that is really why we're here today. This is all a massive distraction from what should be wall-to-wall coverage by the media of Jack Smith's testimony. The fact that we have a corrupt criminal traitor who tried to overthrow our democracy and then stole classified documents after he left office. He is now running the country. That's what this is really all about.
Stronger than ever before. But these are the iron laws that have always determined global power. And we're going to keep it that way. We will secure our borders. We will stop the terrorists. We will crash the cartels. And we will defend our citizens against all threats, foreign and domestic. Other presidents may have lacked the courage or whatever to defend America. But I will never allow terrorists and criminals to operate with impunity against the United States. This extremely successful operation should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives. Very importantly, the embargo on all Venezuelan oil remains in full effect. The American Armada remains poised in position, and the United States retains all military options until United States demands have been fully met and fully satisfied. all political and military figures in Venezuela should understand what happened to Maduro can happen to them, and it will happen to them if they aren't just, fair, even to their people. The dictator and terrorist, Maduro, is finally gone in Venezuela. People are free. They're free again. It's been a long time for them, but they're free. America is a safer nation. This morning, it's a prouder nation this morning because it didn't allow this horrible person and this country that was doing very bad things to us. It didn't allow it to happen. And the Western Hemisphere is right now a much safer place to be. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank General Raisin Kane. He's a fantastic man. I've worked with a lot of generals. I worked with some I didn't like. I worked with some I didn't respect. I worked with some that just weren't good. But this guy is fantastic. I watched last night one of the most precise attacks on sovereignty. I mean, it was an attack for justice. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who I'm going to ask to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, can you explain how the U.S. will run Venezuela?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Finally, a commander-in-chief the world respects and the American people deserve. And as the president said, words can barely capture the bravery and the power and the precision of this historic operation. A massive joint military and law enforcement raid flawlessly executed by the greatest Americans our country has to offer. American warriors are second to none, the best in the world and the best of our country. What all of us witnessed last night was sheer guts and grit, gallantry, and glory of the American warrior. I'm simply humbled by such men, and I tip my hat to our chairman, Dan Raisin Kane, and all those Americans who stood watch last night. Our warriors are the elite of America, and again, President Trump has your back. No other country on planet Earth, and it's not even close, could pull this kind of operation off. And no other president has ever shown this kind of leadership, courage, and resolve, the most powerful combination the world has ever seen. As the president said, our adversaries remain on notice. America can project our will anywhere, anytime. The coordination, the stealth, the lethality, the precision, the very long arm of American justice, all on full display in the middle of the night. Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out.
Oh,
President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people. Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us. And deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere. This is about the safety, security, freedom, and prosperity of the American people. This is America first.
Go to sleep, Donald.
This is peace through strength. And the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it. Welcome to 2026. And under President Trump, America is back. I'd like to welcome now our Chairman Raisin Kane, to give a few more details about the operation. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. Last night, on the order of the President of the United States, and in support of a request from the Department of Justice, as the President said, the United States military conducted an apprehension mission in Caracas, Venezuela, to bring to justice two indicted persons, Nicolas and Cecilia Maduro. This operation, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, was discreet, precise, and conducted during the darkest hours of January 2nd, and was the culmination of months of planning and rehearsal, an operation that, frankly, only the United States military could undertake. What I'd like to do this morning is talk to you through some of the preparation and the details without compromising any of our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There is always a chance that will be tasked to do this type of mission again. Our interagency work began months ago and built on decades of experience of integrating complex air, ground, space, and maritime operations. While the past 2 decades have honed the skills of our special operations forces, this particular mission required every component of our joint force, with soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians working in unison with our intelligence agency partners and law enforcement teammates in an unprecedented operation. We leveraged our unmatched intelligence capabilities and our years of experience in hunting terrorists, and we could not have done this mission without the incredible work by various intelligence agencies, including the CIA, NSA, and NGA. We watched, we waited, we prepared, we remained patient and professional. This mission was meticulously planned, drawing lessons from decades of missions over the last many years, many missions over these last many years. This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. It required the utmost of precision and integration within our joint force. And the word integration does not explain the sheer complexity of such a mission. An extraction so precise it involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere in close coordination, all coming together in time and place to layer effects for a single purpose: to get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas while maintaining the element of tactical surprise. Failure of one component of this well-oiled machine would have endangered the entire mission, and failure is never an option for America's joint force. Those in the air over Caracas last night were willing to give their lives for those on the ground and in the helicopters. Let me talk a little bit about the preparation. After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets. In early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events. Key was choosing the right day to minimize the potential for civilian harm and maximize the element of surprise and minimize the harm to the indicted personnel so, as the president said, they could be brought to justice. And as the president said earlier today, weather in Venezuela is always a factor this time of the year. And over the weeks through Christmas and New Year's, the men and women of the United States military sat ready, patiently waiting for the right triggers to be met and the president to order us into action. Last night, the weather broke just enough, clearing a path that only the most skilled aviators in the world could maneuver through. Ocean, mountain, low cloud ceilings. But when tasked with a mission, this organization does not quit. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time last night, the president ordered the United States military to move forward with this mission. He said to us, and we appreciate it, Mr. President, good luck and Godspeed. And those words were transmitted to the entire joint force. Over the course of the night, aircraft began launching from 20 different bases on land and sea across the Western Hemisphere. In total, more than 150 aircraft, bombers, fighters, intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, rotary wing were in the air last night. Thousands and thousands of hours of experience.
So you're telling us this cost hundreds of millions of dollars.
And our oldest crew member was 49.
Cool,
there's
man.
Simply no match for American military might. As the night began, the helicopters took off with the extraction force, which included law enforcement officers, and began their flight into Venezuela at 100 feet above the water. As they approached Venezuelan shores, the United States began layering different effects provided by Spacecom, Cybercom, and other members of the interagency to create a pathway. Overhead, those forces were protected by aircraft from the United States Marines, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, and the Air National Guard. The force included F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, EA-18s, E-2s, B-1 bombers, and other support aircraft, as well as numerous remotely piloted drones. As the force began to approach Caracas, the Joint Air Component began dismantling and disabling the air defense systems in Venezuela, employing weapons to ensure the safe passage of the helicopters into the target area. The goal of our air component is, was, and always will be to protect the helicopters and the ground force and get them to the target and get them home. As the force crossed the last point of high terrain where they'd been hiding in the clutter, we assessed that we had maintained totally the element of surprise. As the helicopter force ingressed towards the objective at low level, we arrived at Maduro's compound at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time, and the apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline towards their objective and isolated the area to ensure the safety and security of the ground force while apprehending the indicted persons. On arrival into the target area, the helicopters came under fire, and they replied with that fire with overwhelming force in self-defense. One of our aircraft was hit but remained flyable, and as the President said earlier today, all of our aircraft came home, and that aircraft remained flyable during the rest of the mission. As the operation unfolded at the compound, our air and ground intelligence teams provided real-time updates to the ground force, ensuring those forces could safely navigate the complex environment without unnecessary risk. The force remained protected by overhead tactical aviation. Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up and were taken into custody by the Department of Justice, assisted by our incredible U.S. military with professionalism and precision, with no loss of U.S. life. After securing the indicted persons, the force began to prep for departure. Helicopters were called in to exfiltrate the extraction force, while fighter aircraft and remotely piloted aircraft provided overhead coverage and suppressive fire. There were multiple self-defense engagements as the force began to withdraw out of Venezuela. The force successfully exfiltrated and returned to their afloat launch bases, and the force was over the water at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with indicted persons on board. And both Maduro and his wife were embarked aboard the USS Iwo Jima. In closing, what we've witnessed today is a powerful demonstration of America's joint force. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we debrief, we rehearse again and again, not to get it right, but to ensure that we cannot get it wrong. Our jobs are to integrate combat power so when the order comes, we can deliver overwhelming force at the time and the place of our choosing against any foe anywhere in the world. I am immensely proud today of our joint force and filled with gratitude to represent them here today. There is simply no mission too difficult for these incredible professionals and the families that stand by them and support them. As we stand here this morning, our forces remain in the region at a high state of readiness, prepared to project power, defend themselves, and our interests in the region. This operation is a testament to the dedication and unwavering commitment to justice and our resolve to hold accountable those who threaten peace and stability. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who executed this mission. Their courage and tireless commitment to our nation are what makes us strong. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I don't have much to add to what you've heard now, other than the following points. Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 in the United States He is not the legitimate president of Venezuela. That's not just us saying it. The first Trump administration, the Biden administration, the second Trump administration, none of those three recognized him. He's not recognized by the European Union and multiple countries around the world. He is a fugitive of American justice with a $50 million reward, which I guess we saved $50 million. And
make sure.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah, because this operation was free, Marco, right? You clown.
But I want to be clear about one thing.
You
Nicolas
clown.
Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And the result is what we saw tonight. The other message here is the following. You have a guy, like many people around the world, they like to play games. You have a guy who decides he's going to invite Iran into his country, is going to, do the confiscation of American oil companies, is going to flood our country with gang members, is going to take Americans prisoner and try to hold them for hostage and trade them like he was able to do with the Biden administration. Basically likes to play games all this time and thinks nothing's going to happen. And I hope what people now understand is that we have a president. The 47th president of the United States is not a game player. When he tells you that he's going to do something, when he tells you he's going to address a problem, he means it. He actions it. I can tell you, I've watched this process now for 14, 15 years, been around it. Everybody talks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When I get there, we're going to do this. We're going to take. This is a president of action. Like, I don't understand yet how they haven't figured this out. And now, if you don't know, now you know. Because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, if he says he's serious about something, he means it. And this is something that was a direct threat to the national interest.
And damn the consequences.
And the president addressed it. There's a president of peace, by the way. I told you what I just said earlier. This guy had multiple opportunities to find his way somewhere else and figure out another. He could have been.
Once this president says he's going to make a huge mistake and blunder, he's just going to do it.
He's got other sets of problems.
Okay, Marco.
And but I think the message here.
What a clown!
Look, the president doesn't go out looking for people to pick fights with. He's not. Generally wants to get along with everybody. We'll talk and meet with everybody.
Oh yeah. Okay,
but don't play
Marco.
games. Don't play games with this president's in office because it's not going to turn out well. And so I hope that I guess that lesson was learned last night, and we hope it'll be instructive moving forward.
Is that a message for Cuba, Mr. President?
Answer some questions. Yeah, answer some questions, dude. See how this goes.
You said that the U.S. is going to run Venezuela. So who's in power right now?
Well, we're going to be running it with a group, and we're going to make sure it's run properly. We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but that's going to be paid. And we're going to get the oil flowing the way it should be. As you know, it was just a minor flow. It was actually a minor flow for what they have. But we're going to run it properly, and we're going to make sure the people of Venezuela are taken care of. We're going to make sure the people that were forced out of Venezuela.
What are you talking about? You're going to run it. How? How?
Mr. President, does the U.S. running the country mean that U.S. troops will be on the ground? How will that work?
Well, they always say boots on the ground.
Who knows?
We're not afraid of boots on the ground. If we have
Who knows?
Boots on the ground last night.
But it's ours.
At a very high level.
Idiot.
Actually. We're not afraid of it.
You guys are all
we don't mind
morons.
saying it, but we're going to make sure that country is run properly. We're not doing this in
What
vain.
are you
This is
talking about?
This is a very dangerous attack. This is an attack that could have gone very, very badly. Could have gone very badly. We could have lost a lot of people last night. We could have lost a lot of dignity. We could have lost a lot of equipment. The equipment
Guys,
is less
this is
important,
insane.
but we could have lost a lot.
This is insane.
And we're going to make sure that this is proper. We're there now. We're ready to go again if we have to. We're going to run the country right.
So you're going to run it under threat. You're going to threaten to invade them again.
It's going to make a lot of money. We're going to.
That's what he's. That's his response.
People that were taken advantage.
Do what
of.
we say, or we'll kill you. What?
What
Insane.
It's very important. We
Absolutely insane.
They stole our oil. We built that whole industry there. And they just took it over like we were nothing.
Again, I mean, this is a Stephen Miller, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth half-baked idea.
About it. We're late, but we did something about it.
Goodness.
President, what are you explaining the exact mechanism by which you're going to run the country? Are you going to designate a U.S. official to coordinate?
It's all being done right now. We're designating people. We're talking to people. We're designating various people, and we're going to let you know who those people are.
That would run Venezuela.
Well, it's largely going to be for a period of time the people that are standing right behind me. We're going to be running it. We're going to be bringing it back. It's a dead, I talk about a dead country. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're a country doing better than any country anywhere in the world.
This is insane.
And it required leadership. Venezuela has a lot of bad people in there, a lot of bad people that shouldn't be leading. We're not going to take a chance that one of those people take over for
We're going to designate people. We'll let you know who they are. You know what? It's Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth and Stephen Miller. And John Ratcliffe, the CIA. It's going to be some people.
Make a lot of money for the people and give people a great way of
Good
life.
job,
and
Mega.
Also reimbursement for
Good
people
job.
in our country that were forced out of Venezuela.
Rubio would be.
You said earlier today that you weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship
Well,
going?
I understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. He just had a conversation with her, and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
Mr. President,
You're so
former
gross.
President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, you said he's got to watch his ass. And today he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So just what your message is
Well,
about
he
that.
has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And, yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
Mr. President, did you notify any members of Congress in advance?
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved in it.
Sure. We call members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Plus, if I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, We had a lot of ships out there. They sort of knew we were coming. We went there. But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
President, you were one of the only people to watch this all play out live. What was Maduro doing when the U.S. forces entered what I assume would be his home? And also, was there any point where the U.S. was considering if Maduro pushed back or resisted killing Maduro?
It could have happened. It could have happened. He was trying to get into a safe place. You know what a safe place is, all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast. They went through the opposition so fast. And there was a lot of opposition. People were wondering, do we get them by surprise? Sort of surprised, but they were waiting for something. It was a lot of opposition. There was a lot of gunfire. You saw some of it today. But he was trying to get to a safe place, which wasn't safe because we would have had the door blown up in about 47 seconds, they say on average, regardless of how thick the steel was. It was a very thick door. It was a very heavy door, but he was unable to get to that door. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it. Go ahead, finish.
Where is Maduro going to be in the time being right now? Do you know his exact
Well,
whereabouts?
eventually, ultimately, in the near future, he's going to be brought to New York.
And where is he going to be held? Where is he going to be held in New York? Do you know?
That's going to be up to the officials that do these things.
Mr. President, the U.S. has something of a mixed track record of ousting dictators without necessarily a plan for what comes afterwards.
Not with
Did
me,
that weigh on your decision?
Well, that's why we had different presidents, but with me, that's not true. With
Yeah,
me,
that's why you have
we
no
had a
idea who's
perfect
going to
track
run
record
the
of,
country.
winning. We
Could be
win
the people
a
you
lot,
designate.
and we
Could be
win.
Marco
If you look
Rubio.
at
Could be Pete
Soleimani,
Hegseth. Could be
you look
Stephen
at
Miller. You don't
al-Baghdadi,
know.
You look at the
Right.
Midnight Hammer.
Right.
Midnight Hammer was
You sound totally confident,
incredible.
Donald.
Right now, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. We have essentially peace in the Middle East because of that. If
No,
you didn't-
no,
if
Donald,
we weren't
Donald,
successful
Donald,
with Midnight
Donald.
Hammer, you wouldn't have
Stay on
peace
stay
in
on
the Middle
track.
East. So, with me, you've had a lot of victory. You've had only victories. You've had no losses.
Yeah.
President, can you how long do you expect the U.S. to run Venezuela, and how soon do you want the Venezuelan people to hold elections?
So I'd like to do it quickly, but it takes a period of time. You know, we're rebuilding. We have to rebuild their whole
2 weeks, guys.
The infrastructure is rotted.
2 weeks.
It's actually
2
very
weeks.
dangerous.
2
It's
weeks.
blow up territory. Oil is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to take out of the ground. It can kill a lot of people. It has killed a lot of people doing just that. The infrastructure is old. It's rotted. Much of it is stuff that we put there 25 years ago, and we're going to be replacing it. And we're going to take a lot of money out so that we can take care of the country. Yeah.
Are you saying that Secretary Rubio and
Mr. President, China, Russia, and Iran have interests in Venezuela. How does this operation affect your relationships with them when it comes to the oil and the drugs?
And Russia, Russia when we get things straightened out. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to give it to them. In other words, we'll be selling oil probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now, but I would say many more will come.
Are you saying, Mr. President, are you saying that, Mr. President, are you saying that? Oh.
Mr. President, thank you. What is your message to the people of Venezuela today? Of course, the civilian population specifically, they have a lot of questions. What is your message to the people of Venezuela?
That you're going to have peace, justice. You're going to have some of the riches that you should have had for a long period of time. It was stolen from you. But you're going to have peace and you're going to have safety. You're going to have justice. You're going to have a country. You're going to have a real country. You're going to have potentially a great country. You know, if you go back 20 years, maybe even a little longer ago, that was a great country. And they destroyed it. Remember I said that if we lose this election, the United States will be Venezuela on steroids. That's what would have happened. Had we lost the election, the 2024 election, we suffered so badly. When you look at the border from 2020, what they did, what Joe Biden administration did to our country should never be forgotten. But if we had to go through another year of that, we would be exactly where Venezuela was.
Shut up, man.
If they
move
win,
along,
we're going to be Venezuela on steroids, and that's what would have happened.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, man.
Thank you. Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela, and will you be sending in U.S. military troops to provide?
Team that's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president,
except for the vice president who's been sworn in.
And right now she's the vice president, and she's
right now she's the president, dumbass.
President just a little while ago, she had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, "We'll do whatever you need."
I'm sure she did,
I
Don.
think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice.
I'm sure she did,
We're
Don.
have this done right. We're not going to just do this with Maduro, then leave like everybody else, leave and say, let it go to hell.
No, you're going to take
If
all
we
their
just
oil.
Left, it has zero chance of ever coming back. We'll run it properly. We'll run it professionally. We'll have the greatest oil companies in the world go in and invest billions and billions of dollars and take out money.
All this for the oil companies
in Venezuela.
I mean, I guess when Donald had him in office and promised to give them what they wanted if they donated to his
that are now in the United States, and frankly,
to his campaign when he had that meeting with them. I think that was pre-election. This is what he promised them.
And were any of the detained Americans?
Well, right now they're very protected because nobody's going to mess with us. They're very protected. The people of, and we let them know that you better not touch one of them.
Are you concerned that bad elements of the Maduro regime will remain in place?
Well, we know who they are. We're on them, and they're acting much differently now than they would have acted 2 days ago. Okay, wait, behind you, please.
Mr. President, why is running a country in South America America first?
Well, I think it is because we want to surround ourselves with good neighbors. We want to surround ourselves with stability. We want to surround ourselves with energy. We have tremendous energy in that country. It's very important that we protect it. We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world. And we want to make sure we can protect it. Yes, sir. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba is an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about, when the president speaks, you should take him seriously. Suffice it to say, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men, and in some cases, not senile, but incompetent nonetheless. It has no economy. It's in total collapse.
Really?
And by the way,
Marco,
they were,
turn around.
All of the guards that helped protect Maduro, this is well known, their whole spy agency, all that were full of Cubans. I mean, it's amazing. This poor island took over Venezuela in some cases. One of the biggest problems the Venezuelans have is they have to declare independence from Cuba that tried to basically colonize it from a security standpoint. So, yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned, at least a little bit.
Cutting off the oil flow to Cuba from Venezuela?
Well, the president already announced a week ago that anything that's sanctioned, it's sanctioned oil, it's not going to be allowed to get there. So that's a pre-existing.
Mr. President.
The answer is yes. Yes.
Aware of the location of opposition leader Machado, and have you been in contact with her?
No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
Mr. President.
Do you have any hesitations about Machado?
Mr. President, on Monday.
Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect to be the leader.
Mr. President, is it possible that the U.S. ends up administrating Venezuela for years?
Well, it won't cost us anything because the money coming out of the ground is very substantial, so it's not going to cost us anything. We will. Well, we want safety there. We want to be surrounded by countries that aren't housing all of our enemies all over the world. That's what was happening, and you don't want to have that. But we're going to be rebuilding, and we're not spending money. The oil companies are going to go in. They're going to spend money. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago. A lot of money is coming out of the ground. We're going to get reimbursed for all of that. We're going to get reimbursed for everything that we spend. So it's going to be a very important. This is a very big evening that took place last night. We have to be surrounded by safe, secure countries, and we also have to have energy. Very important. We have to have energy that's real energy, not where they're getting 4% and 5% of the energy out of the ground. You take a look. It was such a disaster. So what's going to happen with Venezuela, I think, over the next period of a year is going to be a great thing. And the people of Venezuela will be the biggest beneficiaries.
Mr. President.
U.S. military.
Mr. President, thank you. What did you last speak to Maduro about when you spoke? And is the U.S.
Well, I don't want to get
at war
into
with
the
Venezuela?
conversations, but I did have conversations with him, and I said, you got to surrender. And I actually thought he was pretty close to doing so, but now he wished he did, yeah.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was convicted of many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different? And would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
You referenced boots on the ground earlier. Can you just sort of button this up? Do you envision the U.S. military having a presence in Venezuela as the U.S. runs that country?
No, we're going to have a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil, because we have to have, we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground. And that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country. So I want to thank you all very much. Thank you. Do you have one? Yes, please. You were so nice before. I'm going to give you the final question. Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mr.
Unless it's a
President.
bad question, in
It's
which
about
case I'll
Putin.
go one word. It's about who?
It's about Putin, if you want.
About Putin. Well,
Okay.
that's always nice
You had
to
a
talk
phone.
about Putin.
You had a phone call with him on Monday. Did he talk at all about Maduro? Did y'all talk about this?
No, we didn't.
And
We
then-
never spoke about Maduro.
Are you mad at him right now? I mean, there's this
I'm not
intelligence.
thrilled with Putin. I'm not thrilled with Putin. He's killing too many people. I thought that would be so. I settled 8 1/4 war. You know what the 1/4 was? Thailand and Cambodia. I did it again. They broke out, and I did it.
They're
in
still
about
fighting.
5 hours, and I
Lies.
settled it. I'm giving myself 1/4, so I'm up to now 8 1/4. In other words, I settled the war, but then they broke out. They had a pretty bad breakout over the last 4 days. I got them to go back to peace.
Yeah.
So I only give 1/4. I thought the easiest one would be, one of the easier ones would be Russia, Ukraine. It's not. And they both have done some pretty bad things. And look, that's Biden's war. That's not my war. But I want to stop the lives. Did you see where last month, 30,000, it was 27,000 the month before. 30,000, mostly soldiers, were killed this last month. 30,000. I want to stop that. You know, I got NATO to pay 5% instead of the 2% that they weren't paying. They weren't paying 2, now they pay 5. And we send them a lot of munitions. We send them a lot of things, missiles and various other things, a lot. And they pay. The United States is not losing money. We're probably making money on that. It's the last thing I care about. I just want to stop all those people. We're losing 25, 30,000 human beings that come from 2 places that are very far away. But if I can stop, because it's something I've been pretty good at doing, deals, I guess. It's all a deal. Life is a big deal. But if I can stop that war and stop 30,000 young people, in addition to the fact that people are being killed in Kiev, people are being killed in other cities throughout, a much smaller number, but they're being killed, viciously killed. So I'm not happy about it. I thought that would be something that would get solved. We have Mr. Witkoff here. I think that we're making progress, but that's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, it would have never happened. Putin says it. Everybody says it. If I were president, that would have never happened. But I inherited that war. That was Joe Biden, Zelensky, and Putin. I came into the situation, and it's a mess. And I will say this. I watched an operation last night that was so precise, that was so brilliant. I mean, it was incredible. If we had our people, like this general and our people involved, that war would not have gone on very long, that I can tell you. That war, to use an old term, that war has become a bloodbath, and we want it to get stopped. Thank you very much.
Yep, complete disaster.
Complete
disaster. Exactly what I was afraid of. That this was going to make the situation much worse. We now have Donald Trump saying that he's going to run Venezuela. And when asked who's going to do that, it was a team that he was going to delegate. And then when pressed on that, it was, oh, well, maybe the people behind me. No idea. It's becoming clearer and clearer that Trump just wants to use the military, use the National Guard to go into states that he doesn't like, use the military to bomb Iran, use the military to take out Nicolas Maduro. And what happens after that? Well, whatever. That's not really his problem. And so you have situations like this where when pressed on what the hell he's going to do, there's no answers. It's just a lot of, well, we'll deal with it when the time comes, which is like weeks ago, right? Like you should probably have a plan weeks ago if you're planning to go in and capture another nation's president. He says we don't want the same people taking over. Okay, so the Maduro vice president is now the president. I'm just kind of wondering, like, okay, so where's the change? This is a complete disaster. This is only the beginning of a nightmare for Venezuela, a nightmare for South America, and having to deal with now like a power vacuum in Venezuela, where, you know, they talked about like different gangs in Venezuela who have power. They're going to be fighting, and Trump also wants to just let oil companies go in and control their resources. Oh yeah, and to top it off, it's this whole plan is going to take place under the threat that Donald Trump will come in and kill more Venezuelans and capture other leaders if they don't do his bidding. What? This sounds like a Pete Hegseth, Stephen Miller wet dream, where they're now seen as the tough guys because they got to Nicolas Maduro, spent hundreds of millions of dollars to do it. You know, this coming from the president who's all about like America first and really returning the resources to the American people, spending hundreds of millions of dollars to go get Nicolas Maduro without any fucking plan as to what comes next. I knew this press conference was going to be bad. I didn't realize it was going to be this bad. Yeah, we'll have a team of people. They'll run it, or maybe these guys will. Who knows? But we got them. Do you see how how strong my military is? Okay. Did you really need to prove that point? Pete Hegseth coming out saying, yeah, Maduro, he effed around and he found out. Yeah, man, I'm so tough. I'm so cool. Man, I'm so powerful. Yeah, okay. But what about the lives of the people of South America that are going to be worse than before? Somehow magically they're all just gonna, that peace is going to rain down over Venezuela and Caracas in South America now that Maduro's gone. Maduro, the bad guy, keeping all of South America under his thumb. And now that he's gone, oh well, now who knows who's going to run the country, but it's all, they're free. They're free. All the problems are gone. Batshit insanity. That's what this is. Way worse than what I thought it was going to be. I thought there would be something. I thought there would be some sort of plan. This guy has no idea what he's doing. And so it's still almost 1 o'clock in Florida. And so, of course, Donald still has time to get out and hit the links before getting back to his Saturday night caviar dinner and gala, probably, at Mar-a-Lago. Nightmare scenario just got a whole lot worse. I'm going to end the stream there, and I'm going to work on some of the Jack Smith testimony that I think was really telling and really damning for not only Donald Trump, but for Republicans in the Senate and the House of Representatives. So be on the lookout for that. And if you guys haven't yet subscribed to Reflect Politics, be sure to do that so you get my future videos delivered straight to you and my live streams delivered straight to you. December was kind of a slow month, and I took a lot of December off, but New Year, new more insanity coming from these clowns who have no idea what they're doing. And so as we thought the world couldn't get much darker, they just keep plunging us into madness, chaos, and darkness. And so it's on us to help shine a light on these monsters so that we can get rid of them and never return to a government like this for the United States of America. So thanks for watching. I'm also on Facebook at facebook.com/RFLCT vid, I think. I'm on Twitter at Brennan Plank. I'm on Blue Sky at Brennan Plank. And then, of course, on YouTube here at Reflect Politics. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the comments and in future videos.